welcome and thank you very much for joining us. Um, it's really a big pleasure to welcome a team that we are incredibly fond of, and a company that has been a very big avid supporter of the work of the Digital Council. And we're very privileged and honored uh, to welcome Archimedes. I'm going to try and do this, Archimedes, but I'm probably going to kill it. Panagiotides and Sema Maheri from Software AG. And they're going to be talking about a topic this morning that's really close to our heart as an organization and something that's really important and should be important to all of us. And I always think that, when you talk about digital transformation, it's a bit of a moving target. I think it changes all the time. There's always new things that need to come, that need to be taken into consideration, and that need to be considered when we talk about this topic that's really incredibly broad. So I'm always very happy when somebody can take this off our lap and try and make some sense of this topic that's incredibly complex. And most of us, our own companies and our customers, try to stay on top of trends and understand where the sector is moving, some of the latest things that needs to be taken into consideration. So it's very helpful this morning that I've got two specialists in this area with us. As mentioned, Archimedes, he's a business solutions architect at Software AG, and he's been involved in the software industry for about 30 years or so. And in his past life, he's also been with companies such as IBM, Dimension Data, and today with Software AG. And he's also worked on a couple of startups over the years, which I always deeply respect, because I think that's quite a unique challenge that one has to face when you take something off the ground, but also gives a unique understanding when it comes to the value that software can provide. And today he's a key part of the Software AG team, where he supports their clients to maximize the business value from their software landscape. And with him is Sema, and I should have introduced Sema first because we're still in Women's Month. Sema Maheri, and she's got 16 years experience in IT consulting, also with a background in insurance, finance, banking, and public sector. She's a seasoned project manager and has successfully managed multiple projects and contributed to various industries through her role as a business analyst and solutions architect. And her expertise in business transformation, platform solutions has made her a phenomenal consultant, as I think all of us will see and hear this morning. And when you listen to Sema this morning, you're going to also see that she's best known for her passion for driving business transformation and her ability to navigate these operational challenges. Morning, colleagues, and welcome, and thank you very much for giving us your time. As I mentioned, as an industry association, it's always important for us to take conversations to our members and to talk to topics that we know is critically important, and to stay on top of some of these things. I'm looking at the slide and I'm seeing some words that's popping out, and that's standing out, and it's always interesting for me how many of these words and the terminologies that are displayed on the screen that we're looking at just a small while ago weren't even words. They weren't even real words. And here we are today, and there's just this ever-present amount of new words and terminologies and technologies and changes in the workplace that we need to take into consideration. So Archimedes, thank you very much. Sema, thank you so much, guys, for your time. I'm going to hand over at this stage to you, and I look forward to listening to this and learning something.
Thank you very much, Jonita, and welcome everybody to our session. Today we're going to really talk about some trends that we're seeing around operational excellence. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? And how we can navigate this ever-changing world that we live in. So, without further ado, I think maybe we should just let Sema also show her face so we can all see who we are, and then take it from there. Sema, you want to switch on your camera a bit?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, this is me, Archimedes. You can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sema. So now camera is off so we can concentrate on the content that we're going to be presenting. Just in case, nice profile pictures of ourselves and who we are. As Juanita said, today we're going to breach the topic of trends within operational excellence. And I thought, just to kick it off, we're going to go back in history, back to 1969. And yes, 1969 was a unique year, and it's not so much because Software AG was founded in 1969, but because man walked on the moon in 1969. So Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and we made history by being the first people to be able to leave the earth and go somewhere. But this challenge started back in 1961 when John F. Kennedy said we are going to get to the moon within this decade, and he set the challenge to his country and his people to do that. And you can imagine the complexity of doing this, the processes that need to be followed, the work that needed to be done, the checks and balances that needed to be put in place. And it took them almost a decade before they could launch that rocket that went to the moon. Last week, the Russians sent another rocket to the moon, this time to look for ice on the south pole of the moon to see if there's water there for further exploration of the moon. This is 54 odd years later. The things are quite different, but at the end of the day, the operational excellence that's needed for both of these operations was the same. You needed to get your crew to the moon and back safely and achieve their mission goals. Of course, the preparation for this journey didn't take as long as the previous. There was a lot of learning. There was a lot of collaboration. There was a lot of ability to extend the requirements of, or rather the work that needed to be done to partners, learn from history, all these kind of things. So things have changed, but things stay the same. So operational excellence is really about how do we achieve our goals in the best way possible with the best outcomes and the best achievements. So I hope that sort of sets the scene for what we're going to see in the trends. As Software AG, what we've done is we've created a map of these trends and how they navigate through different capabilities, through different technologies, through different processes to be able to achieve your goals. And we'll work through some of this today, but we also have an ebook that we can share with you if you reach out to us and get hold of it, where there's a lot more detail around this. So just looking at the economy of the world today, and we see that there's a lot of challenges. So if I recall, back in 2008 when we had the economic crisis, we had one thing. It was a housing crisis in America that caused the whole world's economy to come to a grinding halt. Today, we have multiple crises all over the place. We've got political instability, people protesting. We have supply chain disruptions from the pandemic. We have the pandemic itself, health crisis. All these things creating cost pressures, creating problems at home, problems at work. On top of this, we have the climate crisis, weather becoming a lot more unpredictable than it's been. And yet we still need to continue with our businesses and make sure that we deliver the value. So we look at a couple of topics within the space, and that is saying, companies, so this is one of the first trends, companies are really looking at their business models and say, can we respond to this changing world effectively, where we can continue to deliver to our shareholders, as well as looking at the ecosystem. How are we connected to others, and how are we going to make sure that we can leverage these relationships going forward? But also looking at resilience. How are we going to survive all this and make sure that not only survive but thrive by being effective? So bringing resilience and effectiveness to our businesses. So to do that, we really look at a couple of things. We first look at the effectiveness and say, how are we effective? We need to take friction out of our processes. We need to standardize. We need to have visibility into these processes. We need to make sure that they are executing according to plan, and to be able to do that, we really need to be able to model them in a way that we can also share across the organization. We also have to understand that taking a lot, streamlining our processes, sometimes we can streamline them too much. And in streamlining them too much, we really start removing the secret sauce of what makes us, the organizations we are. So we have to make sure that we still maintain that uniqueness, that differentiator that's within our organizations, within the standardization. So really a balancing act between streamlining and effectiveness and the ability to still differentiate from your competitors. We also have to think about agility and being able to respond quickly. So really looking at how we do things and what the variations are, and which variation of how we do things is more appropriate for that particular moment in time, but also looking at these variations of how we do things for the times when there's crisis, and which is the better approach at a time when there's a health crisis, or there's a political crisis, where there's disruption in the way we do business. And of course, we have to also measure how we do things. So we really need to start looking at KPIs in a different way. I'm sure everybody has a KPI that says customer satisfaction, but customer satisfaction on its own, does that really tell us anything? We have to measure customer satisfaction with effectiveness, with how it actually impacts our bottom line. And how do we do that? How do we reach and take care of that? So these are the things that really look at our ability to adapt our business model, from really looking at our business processes, looking at what we do differently at different times, and being able to measure it in real time, and being able to feed back and adapt to that ever-changing environment. But we also have to think about business resilience. And some people might think, well, is business resilience a process topic? Is it an operational topic, or is it something else? But if we think about the fact that all these events and crises that are happening in the world today are impacting our business, business resilience is a topic of discussion for operational excellence. And then we can see that there's a definite overlap from a risk and a operations perspective. So when we have this, these are the touch points where resilience occurs, where you can manage your operational risk and you can excel in your operational performance. And how do you bring these two worlds together and make sure that you can deliver shareholder value to your stakeholders? And of course, there are standards that exist that can help us a lot with resilience, and how this can be introduced in a business continuity environment. And we can leverage this and make sure we introduce and be cognizant of these standards that we can then use to perform as best we can. So at this point, I'd like to maybe ask Sema if she can really help us understand process excellence, operational excellence, as that's what we've been talking about, and see what it means. Sema?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Archimedes. I think operational excellence, it's one of the interesting topics. It's something that obviously all the companies needs to align to. And one can ask themselves, when can we see operational excellence happening in organization? I think we need to. It's a state of how things are happening within organization. Obviously, operational excellence is when organization adopts to a mindset of continuous improvement. And with that, there is value that stakeholders will derive from operational excellence. There are things or elements that form operational excellence. You have to align to certain way of working. You have to have, obviously, with the explanation as Angela has I took the source from Angela. It says that it's a mindset. So you need to be able to think a certain way as an organization. It also forms part of the culture. So how you do things, how you interact with your customers, how do you ensure that certain processes are adopted easily? So there's factors or elements that form operational excellence. Ease of use of processes. Let's say you are trying to roll out a process, how easy it is to be adopted, how easy it is to be utilized. I think those are some of the things, both for internal and external stakeholders. Obviously, one of the things that operational excellence looks into is how quick it is to get a product into a market. Is it efficient? Is it usable? Can it be adopted? So those are the things that operational excellence looks into. Obviously, with speed, you don't want to compromise quality. Operational excellence also leaks into the quality of the work that you produce as an organization. The other factor, it's cost. How cost effective is the products that you provide to your market? Obviously, we have seen that customers, even any customer will look at these three things. That if you order something, let's say you order something online, is it a good quality? How cheap is it? Can I use it? And those three things, if it's quick, if it's good quality, then obviously customers will be drawn to you. And with operational excellence, obviously, you will have different stakeholders that you need to satisfy: your customers, your contractors. So all these things are part of operational excellence, to say, my customers, are they happy? Contractors that I interact with, are they happy? Internal employees, your contractors, partners, all these things form part of the ecosystem in operational excellence. So it's quite an interesting topic, and we see it in a daily basis. In our daily life, we see operational excellence. So the other thing is that we also need to differentiate what operational excellence is not. And if you look at the next slide, Archimedes, this is quite an interesting clip. So you'll see there, this is a perfect example of what operational excellence is not. Yes, definitely. So you will see that someone somewhere didn't follow the rules. Okay, so there was no checks which were done. the activities in the whole setup, there was no alignment. In simple terms, operational excellence, it's business alignment. So all the stakeholders needs to be in the same page. Business activities needs to be coordinated. Who does what at what point? So if there is no alignment, you will see there was a close call. You know, I think that's one of the scariest videos that you can see. Imagine if you are in a plane and you can almost see that something is about to happen, or you see that video after the fact. It's scary. So obviously, operational excellence, it's if business activities are not coordinated, that's also a sign that something is lacking. There's no alignment. There's no a mindset of continuous improvement. When every time you order a product and there's a defect, it's poor quality, you can see that there's no excellence which was put into it. You know, the processes were not followed up to the T, or the recipe was not followed up to the T. And obviously, with that, the result will be lack of safety. You know, there'll be issues with safety, compliance, and we'll talk to compliance just now. But this is what operational excellence, it's not. When something is not going according to plan, we see that there's a lack of alignment in terms of how you do things, ensuring that everyone is in the same page in terms of how you execute, how you do things. So those are some of the examples of operational excellence. And I think when we look at operational excellence, we must also consider what it looks like in terms of what makes up the operational excellence. At the center of operational excellence, it's compliance. So compliance, it is a universal topic. We see it in everyday life, you know, and I've got 4 pictures here that just highlights some. You'll see that just now that there are rules that needs to be followed. Looking at the first picture on the top left, this is a picture of Comrades runners, correct? So Comrades runner, it's Comrades marathon. It's quite a common race here in South Africa. Obviously, you have to complete within 12 hours. It's about 80, 90 kilometers, depending on the start point. And this is not the race that you can just show up on the day and go run. You have to follow a specific program. You have to prepare, and preparation, it's up to a year. You have to run certain races to qualify. You can't just go and run the race on the day. So with that, you'll see that if you align or follow the rules to the Comrades marathon, you will be able to complete the race. If you have not been training according to the schedules, according to the program, chances of finishing are very slim. So that's part of the rules that you see you have to comply. And the other one that we see, the next one, which is on the top right, you'll see that there is a street crossing. You'll see it's based in Tokyo. This is one of the biggest crossing that in Tokyo. You'll see that there are hundreds and thousands of people who will cross that specific crossing. And even though there's traffic lights in place, there's also a marshal who will coordinate when people should go and when people should not go. You will think about it that should a person not follow the lead of a marshal, what will happen? So those are the things that we also see. You need to follow the rules in order to be safe, also in order for chaos not to happen. The third picture on the slide, it's you'll see there's students in class. So obviously in class, you also have to have rules for the class to run smoothly, for the class to, for the kids to also learn. Rules there in class will be for every child to speak when to raise the hand, the first thing. The second thing is that they need to allow themselves to be to be picked so that they can speak. Also, they need to listen to others when they speak. You can't just speak randomly. So that allows the class to have order, not to be chaotic. And the last picture, which is you'll see there's a picture of a lady who completed the paragliding. This is one of the adventurous sports. I think you should try it. The rules here is that you need to run. There's like a ramp where before you can take off, you need to run. But in order for you to not to injure yourself or injure the instructor, you need to run until your feet are off the ground. So the danger here is if you're not running or if you stop at a specific point before the takeoff, it means that you might injure yourself, which may result in also be fatal, or you could be paralyzed. So it's important that you follow the rules and run until you take off. So we see that all these rules are meant to bring structure, are meant to bring order in the daily lives. And these rules can be made by us or made for us on our behalf in order for things to go smoothly. So compliance, even though it's perceived as a complex topic, it is actually a very simple topic where we say compliance is just rules and regulations that needs to be followed in order to achieve a specific goal. So there's always a goal that's linked to compliance. And these rules are meant to create structure or create a simple way of doing things. So I do think that with compliance, it's something that we will see in our daily lives, but also it needs to also drive how we do business. So one of the elements of compliance, it's regulatory requirements. When you look at governments and industry bodies, they have their own specific requirements that needs to be followed. So businesses needs to align to certain requirements. When you look at your financial services, they are aligned to, or they are regulated by certain financial bodies. Insurance, fintech, they are regulated by certain bodies. Governments, they also have their own rules that citizens, companies needs to comply to. So here is one of the big four consulting companies which identified that it's all about effective and efficient integrated business processes. So with compliance, you take compliance, your rules, your regulations, and ensure that they align to your business processes. Why do you have to do that as an organization? This will allow you to sort of avoid penalties. Can you think about companies like banks or insurances, if they had not, or if they had ignored the POPI Act and said that we will still share personal information, we will still do business according to how we have done it before the act was implemented. So you'll see that if you do that, this will hamper how you do business, and also as business you will also be penalized for not following those regulations. And also the other thing is we see that with compliance and regulatory requirements, there is a need to have a central way of communicating. And obviously the regulatory requirements and compliance, there are acts that drive these things. So the first thing that I would like to communicate here is one of the elements, obviously, it's if you look at the regulatory frameworks, we've just been moving most of our customers to the cloud. And with regulatory requirements, you need to align or you need to follow specific frameworks. Things like you can't just, if you propose that, okay, we're moving you to the cloud, customers will always ask that, okay, I need to understand how you handle business continuity. Are you also certified? What's the quality looking like? Business information security, how are you going to encrypt our information? So all these things, even though it's regulated, each business needs to align to it. And obviously with regulations, frameworks, you also need to ensure that this is included in how you manage, how you do things as an organization. Your process management, how do you ensure that operational excellence is included as part of your ways of working. Things like if you have a quality management a framework that you follow, you need to also include that in your processes. That will allow you to ensure that when the auditors come and say we need to do quality, or we need to audit how you do things, you are able to say this is how we've been doing it, and these are the policies that are linked to it, this is the documentation. And also this is used as a form of knowledge sharing. We also see that with now that you have implemented, define your processes, you can also, once you have automated your regulatory requirements, you can also see how a business is executing. So what was defined as a process, you can also see how it's been executing. And we use this as with process mining to extract the executed processes and see how it's aligned. So when auditors come, or when it's time to prove that how you're doing things, you can actually say that, okay, this is how we had documented it, but this is how it's performing. This also allows you to identify opportunities for improvements, also for innovation. We've seen that if you have an integrated ways of working, you are able to innovation. And we were discussing this earlier in the week with Archimedes, that innovation, it's not creating something new. Innovation is taking what is existing and improving it, and ensuring that it works better. It's innovation doesn't always have to be something brand new. It can be the existing, but just improved and working properly. And with that, we've seen that also from a process mining perspective, you'll see that once you understand how you do things as an organization, once you see that, okay, I have defined how we do things, process mining becomes very powerful. It allows you to really take the current information and improve it. So just to highlight some of the trends which we seeing that they will happen in the next 3 years, obviously beyond the 3 years, we see that with the first one, for the purposes of this webinar, I would like to just highlight that in the market, there'll be further conversions to what we've been seeing. Obviously, consolidation effort in process mining landscape. Most of the major vendors like your SAP, your IBM, Microsoft, they have acquired those small independent process mining vendors, and with that it means that they have seen the need to integrate obviously process management with process mining, and this will enable end-to-end view capabilities as well as comparing what has been designed with what's been executed. And obviously, with the second one, we see that technology will be mainstreamed. Process mining will become a mainstream technology. This might not, obviously, with our market, process mining, it's still in, it's still young, I would say. But with other regions or with other countries, process mining is quite matured. With our market, it's still in infancy stages. We see that there is a need to prepare trends, and as process mining has been a niche solution, also there will be changes in how we implement these solutions. And obviously, from the third trend is that there will be a stronger focus on decisive core processes. Businesses, I think in the past, implementation has been done based on who makes the loudest noise in businesses. Now the focus will be more on improving the core processes, ensuring that improvements are done in processes that are core versus processes which are supporting like your HR and finance. So those are the things that we have identified as one of the trends. And the last one, with enterprise mining, we've seen that previously the main aim was mining processes just for being process centric. Now the perspective is changing that customers would like to mine customer journeys. They would like to mine other data that will bring insights. It's not only focused on customer journeys, but focusing on the insights from an overall perspective. So these are the trends that we have identified. Archimedes, I'm not sure if you want to add to this, the trends, or you want to continue.
I actually wanted to just say that if we, so this is just the thought, is if we have compliance, so we have all our processes modeled, and we've got the auditors coming in and they want to check the last year of what we did in these things. We usually get a sample, maybe 10 instances. If we marry up compliance and what we go through with process mining, do we not have the ability then to really be able to evaluate every single process in our organization against the standard and have a total auditability of everything?
It is possible to have that, yeah.
So I think it's a very,
yeah.
The intersections become very exciting when we look at these things. So thank you, Sema. I'll move on to then the next trend, and that is sustainability. So in business, sustainability is becoming a big buzzword, ESG. I'm sure everybody's heard of it. When we look at reports from analysts, we see that a vast majority of the C-level execs are really being put under pressure to do something about sustainability. And this becomes not only from a regulation perspective, but even from a stakeholder, shareholder perspective. And not even from a shareholder, but even consumers. Consumers are starting to make decisions on which brands they align themselves to based on those brands and their sustainability goals. And in that, we might feel that there's a risk in us losing our position in the business world, but there's also an opportunity. So if we do this well, if we really get on board with sustainability and understanding what it means to our organization, we can leapfrog. We recently spoke to a client that has already put a whole framework for sustainability in place, feeling that this is the way that they're going to challenge their competitors by having a lot better sustainable organization and product set than their competitors do. But we come back to operational excellence and process. And is this a process topic? And I think it is, because we really look at the sustainability of an organization from an operational perspective. What are we using? What are the resources we're using? How are they impacting the environment? Are they sustainable? How can we improve? And linking, just like we do things like risk into our process, we start linking sustainability goals into our processes. So that way we can really have an outcome that is positive. And there's plenty of standards and frameworks and content that we can leverage to align to make sure that our operations and our processes are aligned with our sustainable goals, as well as being part of our sustainable goals, being part of our operations, not a separate thing that we do. Some news is that in Singapore they've actually created a new role, a C-level role called the Chief Sustainable Officer, Sustainability Officer. So already we're going to start seeing this year and continuing into next year that this role is going to be part of the C-suite. So it's no longer this, nice to have. It's going to be a have to have. And this has been driven as well, as I said earlier, by the customers, but also by the shareholders. Shareholders investing in companies that are sustainable rather than ones that are not. So sustainability becomes a topic that we need to really look into from a trend and from an operational excellence perspective. The other topic is really looking at our workforce, and the pandemic really pushed the transformation, the digital transformation forward quite a lot, in that people had to work from home. So suddenly organizations were extending their workforce to their workforce's homes. How many people installed fiber networks in their homes over the pandemic so they can continue working? And once the pandemic was over and that crisis was over, it left the residue of people saying, well, you know what, I actually like working like this. Maybe I'd like to do work from home 3 days a week and come into the office twice. So, and this seems to be something that is quite regional in terms of what the preferences are. But we see definitely an overwhelming a way of working being staying at home. But then when we talk about people working from home, we have to understand the processes that they are engaging in and how we can still derive the value from these from this employee from the fact that they are no longer within the realms of our organization and sitting at home. What about security? What about performance? All these kind of issues. So we really need to understand these. So looking at the way we work then has its own goals, and we need to look at our policies and guidelines as to how we engage our employees in those things? How do we keep them informed as with what they do and how they do things? Sema, I don't know if you want to then look at a little bit more detail around that, and how does process management become part of a consumer world? How do the employees being consumers of this all this information happen?
So I think with you've just answered it with the previous slide, Archimedes, with regards to ensuring that there is a single or the ways employees function, it's aligned in terms of the ways of working. So having a central repository or having one way of consuming information becomes very important. And in that, we see that you'll have different roles within the organization, and different roles will perform different functions, but all of them, you may see that there is consolidation that needs to be done. So when it comes to ensuring that like a general worker knows how to perform a specific process which was designed by a strategist somewhere in at the head office, you need to create it in such a way that it's simple for them to understand, but also it's also following the instructions according to how it was aimed. So role specific representation of information becomes very important. And also, when you create information, it needs to be distributed. Someone needs to consume it, and there needs to be that collaboration that is done by teams. And with collaboration, we've seen that as soon as you share information, you discuss information, that's where ideas come as businesses. When you provide feedback, it means that, remember when we started, we said operational excellence, it's a mindset of continuous improvement. This actually represents what operational excellence is. You create, you distribute, meaning that you allow people to consume information, they collaborate, they bring their own ideas, they come up with suggestions, you give feedback, you analyze and implement. So this will really allow for visualization of information for different stakeholders, but it also brings that value to your business, because we always says that in collaboration we do things better. When we collaborate, when we discuss, that's where ideas come. So the trend is that process management won't just be drawing business processes and just they are just being consumed by the relevant users, but it gets consumed by the workforce as well. Yeah, I think you can continue with the next one just to give the summary of the trends, Archimedes.
Thanks, Emma. So just to summarize, business models, we need to be able to, what we're seeing is that the business models are adapting to this ever-changing world. Resilience has increased in importance. So budgets are moving away from innovation and more to resilience, making sure that we can survive the crises that are on us. Compliance, regulatory compliance, industry compliance, governmental compliance is putting pressure on organizations. So we need to make sure that we are adhering to these. We have more and more data that we need to mine to get insights as to how to do things better. And the new trend is now mining process generated data rather than just line of business data. So more and more mining of information so we can get the insights we need. Sustainability is becoming a requirement, if I can say, in that sustainable companies will have a future with the support of their stakeholders. and hybrid working and hybrid management, where people are going to work from wherever they want, but you still have to maintain that control and that oversight to be able to reach the goals. So when we come then to our trend map, this starts taking us through the different aspects of these trends. So what we've done, and we do have, as I said in the beginning, we have a booklet that goes into a lot more detail around this trend map, that if you ask from us, we'll definitely assist in you getting it. It really shows the steps of how new work is part of digital transformation, how digital collaboration becomes important, talent management, all these things, all the steps to get the new way of working through the operational excellence exercises. How do we take our business and innovation models? Again, digital transformation becomes part of a core capability. We have new technologies like the Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything, platform economies influencing how we do things. So again, a lot of junctions in how things are going to be done, and what we need to keep our eye on, and how do we introduce these elements into our business and into our thinking, and designing our processes and our ecosystems accordingly. Connectivity becomes key. We know that if you want to work from home, you've got to have a fiber network or a 5G network, something that's performant. Right now, I'm sitting in my study, being able to share my video, being able to share my presentation. How am I doing that? I'm doing that because connectivity is key to that. But connectivity also opens up risks to how do I deliver value to my customers? How do I secure what I'm doing to, for the company? And of course, the automation side of things, the way the industry 4.0 is now, we have to also think about automation and how automation is going to be introduced into our processes. Which processes are candidates for automation? Which are candidates for high touch human interaction? So we also have to start thinking about as part of our trends is looking at the Industry 4.0 initiatives. Sema, I'd want you to then talk about a little bit of process excellence.
Yes, I think with process excellence, Archimedes, we have discussed it, that some of the trends, obviously, ways of working becomes very key. And obviously with process mining, how you do things needs to be aligned. It needs to, process excellence just talks to alignment in business operations. And when we look at the regulatory compliance, we see that obviously the trends here, we need to comply to regulations, things like fintech, redtech. How do you comply? How do you automate those regulatory requirements? Making sure that you are able to also monitor your compliance, automate those regulations. Business resilience, ensuring that you are able to have a fraud detection in your business, to ensure that your cybersecurity implementations are done properly, to ensure that everyone has access to the right information. And obviously, the next one with automation, things like hyper automation, it's something that now it's becoming quite a trend, even here in South Africa. Ensuring that you have digital process automation, your RPA, it's in place, and it's quite a trend, and we need to also investigate and consider it. The last one will be customer-driven business. Now we see that customer have more options, ensuring that your customer touch points are being taken care of, ensuring that your customers are happy and how your customers are feeling throughout the process. It's something that businesses need to consider, and they need to ensure that they are aligned to these trends.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
I think with that we've come to the end of our webinar. I don't know if there were any questions posed in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Archimedes. Louise asks to please just define again process mining.
So process mining is the analysis of process data. So what is process data? Process data is when you're executing a process, it obviously goes through a sequence of steps. You capture the beginning of a step and the end of the step, what that step is, who was it performed by, what the next step was, and you start mining this information to start finding, how do we perform, how quickly are certain steps taken, how long is the end-to-end process in terms of time, maybe in terms of cost, maybe even in terms of value. So process mining is just being able to take process information and make sense of it in a way that benefits the business.
And then finally, just in 2 minutes, is there something that's quite unique about South Africa and our journey to digital transformation that obviously Software AG is a global company. Are there things that are quite unique to us, and how are we faring in comparison to the rest of the world?
So from what I see, we are quite the same as everybody else. We have the same challenges from a digital transformation perspective. In some ways, we are actually ahead of the game, and in some ways a little bit behind. But overall, we can't say that we are any different. So depending on the countries we want to compare ourselves to, we're probably about the same. So there's nothing unique. The only challenges that we have from an operational perspective that maybe don't exist in others is things like load shedding. But what we're finding is that even in other countries, they're starting to have blackouts, brownouts, whatever they call them. So every country's got its own terminology that they use for the same kind of thing. But that resilience becomes very important. Is what are we going through that we need to prepare ourselves for? And we're ahead of the game in that unfortunately we've been suffering earlier than ever before.
Yeah, I believe. Sure, Sammy. Yes, we will be sharing the PowerPoint, and they will also publish this in the upcoming Connects. There'll be a link to the session. I just want to thank everybody for attending, and thank you, Team Software AG, for making your time available. It is the BRICS week, this week and next week in South Africa. So it's really busy time. I know that there's a big meeting on at the moment that started at 10 o'clock this morning. So a lot of diluted attention this week. But yeah, thanks guys for giving us your time. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful week further, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you very much.